You've tuned into Unpause Your Life with Dr. Cali Estes. Your access to success strategies and more to help you move onward and upward with your life. Listen in each week as she interviews others who have really taken their essence to the next level and truly unpaused their life. Now here's your host, Dr. Cali Estes.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is Dr. Cali Estes, and I am founder of the Addictions Academy, the Addictions Coach, and Rehab Rescue. Welcome to Unpause Your Life. This is a great podcast where we showcase people who have done something extraordinary with their life. I welcome you, and I hope you enjoy all of our guests.
On my way, found a reason to wake up another day.
Before we get started, let's hear this short message from one of my supporters.
All the things that you won't do.
Did you know 81% of Americans would like to become a published author? Chances are you might be one of them. What's stopping you? Writing and publishing a book takes a lot of work and is expensive, right? Well, not anymore. For your next book project, or even your first, team up with Hassle-Free Books. They make it so easy to become an author. They remove all of the fuss and struggle and make it smooth and simple. And it's far more affordable than you could ever imagine. Go to hasslefreebooks.com and use promo code UNPAUSE to receive a 10% discount off of any book project. Get started right away and become a published author in as little as 45 days. For your free 1-hour book formula guide, which will show you just how painless it can be to become an author, head to hasslefreebooks.com today.
All right. Thanks again for joining me. Let's get started with today's show.
Took a walk down the dark road where they said that I shouldn't go. I knew the dangers of life.
Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Cali Estes of Unpause Your Life with a famous guest. I've got Indian Bob, host of the Recovery Radio Raw show. And let me tell you about my guest. Indian Bob has been in 12-step recovery since February of 2002. He's been involved with 12-step recovery radio shows since September of 2006 and has been on several radio stations across the country as well as internet radio. Indian Bob was co-host of Recovery Radio Live, which aired across the country and also on cable radio network. Indian Bob was the host of Recovery HD before stopping production to start Recovery Radio Raw, which is now his primary focus. Recovery Radio Raw is a syndicated 12-step recovery talk show focusing on addictions from alcohol, drugs, gambling, sex, and many other forms of addictions. Indian Bob has a history of alcohol and drug abuse dating back to the mid-1970s. He has spent time in institutions, jails, and prisons as a result of his alcoholism and drug addiction. Since his recovery started in 2002, his desire to give back was what so freely given to him has driven him to service others. He has spoken in numerous institutions and prisons, carrying a message of experience, strength, and hope to those suffering from the disease of addiction. His main goal is to get the message of 12-step recovery to as many people as possible through Recovery Radio Raw. It airs 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on 97.5 FM. 96.1 FM and 1340 AM in South Florida, and on worldwide on www.therealrawradio.com and on the TuneIn app, which is available on Google Play. Indian Bob is also an interventionist, and he works with people with addiction and disorders of mental health related to addiction. He's a published author, and he's released the first in a series of books called The 12 Steps Revealed Questions, the 29 most commonly asked questions about all types of addictions. Welcome, Indian Bob.
Well, thank you, Dr. Cali. I might want to mention also that we have a live Facebook feed worldwide that you can listen to the show on and participate by commenting and asking questions, and that is facebook.com facebook.com/recoveryradio.fm. And I really love that aspect because we get a lot of interaction. So how are you, Dr. Cali? Good to hear from you.
I'm good. I'm fantastic. I'm glad you're on the show. Glad to have you. And my very first question for you, I'm just going to dive right in on you, is what got you into radio?
Well, I actually went to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting back in 1980. I was actually a national commercial guy. They claimed I had the voice, so I did commercials for Bear and Greyhound, Pan Am Airlines, Alka-Seltzer, just a long list of them. What happened was they finally got me an on-air gig, but it was in some country town in Alabama. I don't even remember the name of it, playing country music from midnight to 6. You know, my ego at that time, because everybody kept saying I had the voice, I said, I'm not taking it. I'll just go back into construction. I don't need radio. In 2006, I met a guy, and we co-founded a show called Recovery Radio Live. About 6 months into that show, my younger brother, Scott, died of an overdose in my mother's bathroom. I had to find a way to get this message out to people that there was such a thing as successful recovery, that we didn't have to see another mother lose a child, let alone my baby brother. I ended up continuing Recovery Radio Live for a bit, and it turned into kind of a celebrity circus thing, and I walked away from that. Eventually, I ended up buying the physical assets of Recovery Radio Live, and then played around a little bit with Recovery HD, and then decided that Recovery Radio Raw was going to be my primary focus. I have never been a talk show host in my entire life. I didn't know the first thing about it, and I think that, my show, Recovery Radio Raw, will be 6 years old September 11th.
Wow.
So I still, sometimes it feels very surreal, but I'm the longest running recovery radio show in the country. I've outlasted every show that's ever come around. And I think it's because I reveal everything about me. I'm very straightforward when it comes down to 12-step recovery and helping families, or what I call the afflicted and the affected. For some reason, people like to listen to me. So I'm helping people, and I think that's really the main goal of the show, is to educate and inform and bring a message of hope to the afflicted and the affected.
Well, congratulations on the longest running show. That's fantastic.
It still amazes me.
And it's awesome now with Facebook and social media, because not only can people hear you on the radio, they can now see you doing your thing and interact with you, which is really cool.
Yeah, I like that. I definitely have a face for radio, but I'm trying to get used to the fact that people can see me. We do have listeners on that Facebook feed on my show from Scotland, Ireland, Egypt, Turkey, all over Canada, everywhere in the United States. It is really, really cool to find out the commonalities and the differences when it comes to recovery from around the world. It is just an amazing thing. I really encourage people to participate with it.
Yeah, that's excellent. So they can get the resources they need and then interact with you with questions that maybe other people don't have the answers to, or don't take the time to answer for them, which is fantastic.
Well, and that's important. And as you know, you were on the show probably a month or so ago, and talking about the Addictions Academy and all the things that you do and the resources that are available to people, and in particular educating people that want to help others and get certified and do it in a professional manner from the family assessment on down. And that's a valuable resource. So I try to bring as many good quality resources to people so that they can have a place to go in order to get that help.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. Yeah, the goal is to get as many people trained out there in the field helping other people. We gave away, I did the math the other day, in the past year and a half, $355,000 of free training. Anybody who comes to us who says, I don't have the money, we don't turn away. We train them. And we get them out there doing the work. So, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I always look at that as a return on the investment, is that even though you're not making that money, you're putting people out there who are knowledgeable, educated, and they can be trusted to have the quality kinds of hands-on experience to help families.
Right. And everything always comes back tenfold. Law of karma.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer in karma. What you put out, you get back.
Absolutely. So you have a unique position with addiction, because not only were you an addict yourself, your brother was also an addict. So you got to see both sides, if you will.
Yeah, I lived it, and my kid brother Scott, October 25th, it'll be 10 years ago that he died. And I had spoken with him on September 14th of that year, which was his birthday. And I was probably 5.5 years clean and sober at the time. And I was trying to get him to come down here to Florida so that I could help him. And even though I knew that nobody could help me unless I really wanted it, I still kind of pushed it with my brother. And at the end of the conversation, he pretty much said, Bobby, I just want to die. I want to be out of pain. I want to be done. And I knew in that moment that there wasn't anything I could do, that he was going to do what he wanted to. And to be honest with you, when I got the news, there was a mixture of anger, grief, and happiness, because he got what he asked for, and at least he was at peace. He wasn't in that pain any longer. And in the end goal of things for me, particularly when it comes to my show or those families that I work with and that kind of thing, is that I want to end the pain, but in a good way, where there's positive, where there's hope, where there's no longer helplessness, but help. So, doing what I do, I can't really reach everybody, but the more people I can reach, the better. And you know as well as I do, there are successes, and then there are those that I don't call them failures. It's just the unwillingness to reach deep enough inside of ourselves to grab a hold of that hope, instead of the incomprehensible demoralization that we live through in active addiction, alcoholism, sex, gambling, whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's really hard to extend that hand and ask for help. So my main goal in that is getting people to grab my hand.
So let me ask you this. When you've done that, when you've reached out to an addict in the throes of addiction and you've said, I'm here, let me help you, and they shut the door in your face, and you reach out again, they shut the door in your face, what point do you say to yourself, I can't help this individual? Because I know that's a question not only from professionals, but from family members. When do I say, I've got to work on me now and not fuss over this person? What's your advice for that?
Well, the first thing I'll tell you is anytime somebody says, what's my advice, I always say, the only advice I can give you is don't take mine. I rely more on the experience, strength, and hope. I don't walk away. I believe that where there's breath, there's hope. But at a certain point, when they don't want it, and they're pretty adamant about that, usually if the family is involved and the individual is still part of the family, at least at this point, I usually encourage them to start taking care of themselves, that you need to move on. You need to stop having control over your life based on your loved one. And if they're not willing to, do what's necessary to change, then you got to brace yourself for the outcome. And that's really the difficult part. One of the things I enjoy most is I have a lot of relationships with a lot of families because I follow them for a year afterwards, including the individual who suffers from the addiction, because I want to see long-term success. Does that always happen? No, of course not. But if they're willing and able, it changes the scenario. when they are not willing and able, in our 12-step recovery literature alone, it says that we don't waste valuable time on someone who doesn't want it. But I always leave the door open. That doesn't mean I'm going to walk away. They've got my information. They know how to contact me. And every once in a while, I still send a text message or an email to make sure that the situation isn't volatile and keep informed as to what the situation is. Again, we need to be able to, anytime we're trying to help somebody, be able to help them. And if we can't, we have to kind of move on to the person that does want it. And that may sound harsh to a lot of people, but the bottom line is, if I'm spending so much time on this one individual who continually resists the change, then how many other people am I letting go of that may want it?
Right, that's a good point. If we're so focused on one individual, it's like the Beacon Lighthouse. If the lighthouse is out there in the harbor and it's only focused in one direction, sometimes the ships can't see it. It's just in one spot, but it rotates so you can see where the rocks are. Otherwise, you'd run into the rocks and, destroy your boat. And that's very valid when it comes to our clients. Sometimes they're just not ready. And we can stand here and be a beacon of hope and a beacon of light. But if they're not willing to do the work, I always say, I can't work harder than you at your own recovery. I can't do that for you.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I think really exists nowadays. And again, I'm straightforward. I shoot from the hip. But we're dealing with a generation of entitlement. And they think that we're supposed to do everything for them for their recovery. Well, I'm kind of old school when it comes to recovery. Obviously, I've been around for a while. I can only ask you to help me with things that I can't do myself, where I do need somebody to educate me and tell me the straight things about my recovery. And the bottom line is that we can't give recovery to you. It's not some magic wand that by some miracle, just because I've been around for a long time, that you can sit next to me and obtain it by osmosis. It just doesn't work that way. It takes work. It takes willingness. It takes self-honesty. It takes a lot to face our demons and clean up our side of the street and become accountable and responsible. But it's always a difficult thing when you're trying to get somebody into recovery and getting them to make the decision for themselves. As you know, doing an intervention, the first thing I do is I assess the family. I want to know what the situation is, how much they're using, what are the behaviors, is it volatile, is it dangerous, have they been stealing jewelry, get the assessment, and then, get the family themselves to really get a true assessment of what is going on with them, not necessarily the person who has the addiction. And then I can deal with that individual afterwards. But it's getting the
key. What you just said is key. Dealing with the family so you can deal with the individual. Everybody overlooks the family and rushes to the individual, and no one deals with the crazy town family.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the sad part. Because the family really, if you think about it, in the vast majority of times, they're absolutely clueless as to what to do. Their entire lives are disrupted. It's chaotic. They can't sleep. They're trying to find something and to grab a hold of as far as hope goes so that they don't watch their loved one die. And at the same time, too, though, I have found that the family sometimes is in deeper denial than the addict himself. And sometimes they don't they don't know enough about treatment. They don't know enough about recovery. Everybody's opinion is that stuff doesn't work. And they don't know that it does unless they have an example of it. And I really think that, especially with you and myself, when we're educating people and we're informing them about proper procedures and all the rest of it, and we're reaching out to families, not only do we have the education, but some of us have the life experience with addiction, and it's a benefit to the family because we understand exactly how their loved one feels, how they act. It's a bonus. The bottom line is I know what it's like to walk in their shoes. The family does not most of the time. They sometimes will say, well, he's only smoking marijuana. really? So why is your jewelry missing? Why is there holes in the wall?
Yeah.
Why angry when you confront them? I'm going to say this because I think it'll be a great benefit to people. Even if you're not in addiction, this works for you. The truth will set you free, but first it's going to piss you off. So if you confront someone in a way that they're getting angry, it's usually because you told them the truth. So that's what you need to look for, is where is the truth in that? Why are they acting the way they are? Because you got them in a corner. You know. And the problem is that the family doesn't enforce the no.
That's correct. I had a client this morning who relapsed over the weekend. He called me mid-relapse to tell me he was relapsing and there's nothing I could do about it. And I said, okay, call me when you're sober and we'll talk about it. Well, mom called me, screaming up one side and down the other. Why didn't I stop her son from relapsing? And I said, excuse me, I can't stop your son from using drugs. I don't have that power. I can talk to him. I can assist him. He has a sponsor, but if he doesn't do the work, it's not going to happen. So she got quite an education this morning on what addiction is and what compulsive behaviors are. And she gave him the car and the money to go buy the alcohol and then complained he used the alcohol. And I said, that's part of the family perception. Well, if I give him the money and he drinks here, I can at least watch him. He's not out there, dying. And they don't understand that by doing that, you're enabling the addict and you're codependent upon the behaviors. And now she spends the next 3 days fussing over this kid when we have a hurricane coming. So the family gets twisted up in this and gets caught up in it. And they want so badly to believe that what the individual is saying is true, they convince themselves it's true. Because my son wouldn't lie to me or my husband wouldn't do that to me. And then they internalize it and say, what's wrong with me that he does this to me? And I say, well, what his behavior has nothing to do with you. You can't control human behavior. And he's not the boss of you and you're not the boss of him. It's how you react to the behavior. It's your perception of the behavior that we have to change. If you change your behavior, the addict will change theirs. When you stop giving the money and the cars and all these things, watch how quickly things shift.
Yeah. What I tell the family is I'm big on questions. Like they ask me a question, I ask one in return. And one of the biggest ones I use is, how many times have you said to your child, I'm not going to give you, this is the last time I'm going to give you money? They always say, I don't know, a lot. And I go, yeah, you want to know why? You want to know why you keep doing it? Because your child, your loved one, only hears you're giving them money. They don't hear the rest of it because you've said it before. You've done it before. All they hear is, I'm getting money. They've already got their hand out, and they'll guarantee that the next time you say, this is the last time I'm giving you money, they're going to still have their hand out. The bottom line is you got to change your language with your loved one. As a family person, you got to stand your ground. Aren't you tired of giving them money? Aren't you tired of being stolen from? I'm not giving you money. I'm not participating in your addiction any longer. I am not going to watch you destroy yourself. Straight language. And in that family assessment, that's what the impact letter is for, is so that they can state straightforward what they're not going to do, not what they can do, what they want to do, none of that. It's what I'm not going to do.
Right. So part of this, what I'm hearing, is empowering the family, not just treating the addict, but empowering the family to understand addiction and to say no.
Ooh, how about that?
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, the word no. Addicts don't like the word no. They get upset, which means they're getting angry, which means they're telling the truth because they're saying no. I chuckle at it because it seems so simple, to sit here and talk to you about it as professionals. We understand that it really is simple. But getting the family to stop complicating it and the addict to stop complicating is where the real challenge is.
Right.
So simplicity is key. 12-Step Recovery says it's a simple program for complicated people.
Now, I hear, since you do intervention, you're also a fantastic AMA APA blocker, which would go along with the addict hearing the word no.
Ooh. I actually work for a facility, and I am the director of community relations for that, which means I have relationships with hospitals and doctors and the communities, and also the community of the treatment center. It's very important that community relations, when it comes to communication with staff and clients and all the rest, is on par, that everybody knows what's going on. I will tell you that I have never lost an AMA, ever.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I had our CEO not too long ago, I forget who he was talking to, but he said, I had 3 of our top clinicians trying to get this individual not to, and for those that are listening, AMA means leaving against medical advice. And, we don't all have minors in treatment. They're adults and they're able to make decisions for themselves, albeit in early recovery, not very good decisions. So as an AMA individual, one of the greatest tools I use is, okay, I know you got excuses, but I'm going to step out of the room. I'm going to walk away for 5 minutes. What I want you to really think about is can you give me a valid reason as to why you should leave or why you should not give yourself an opportunity to change your life? And then I just walk out of the room. I come back in and I already know. As soon as they look at me, I go, yeah, I know. You can't come up with a valid reason. There isn't one. We have a million excuses, never a valid reason, ever.
And I was just thinking, it's interesting because so many people don't know how to block an AMA. And I'm clinical. I was trained as a therapist first, coach secondary, although I like the coaching way better than the therapy. And in my book studies, we weren't taught how to block an AMA APA. And in my training, we weren't taught that at the treatment center because there was no training. It's here you go. Welcome to the treatment center. Here's what we use. Here's the computer. Here's the clients. Have at it. There was no training. So we are not crisis-oriented. We are therapy-oriented. So when you have a client that comes in and goes, I'm leaving, therapists go, I don't know what to do with that. I'm going to pull out my therapy tools, and we're going to sit down and rationally have a conversation. Well, addiction isn't rational. So now you're trying to rationalize with an irrational mind. It doesn't work.
You said addiction isn't rational?
It's not rational. Nope.
Oh, my God. I mean, that's what they tell us, right? In the second step, it says we came to believe in a power greater than ourselves that could restore us to sanity. We're not known for making sound decisions. So
right.
How do you prep yourself for that? I have news for you, and you're a brilliant woman. And I told you before, I was attracted to your brain. I want your brain. I want to tap every resource of that brain because I'm fascinated by very highly intelligent people and I like to tap resources. But the bottom line is unless you've walked in my shoes, you're not going to understand why I want an AMA. You're just not going to. You can put all the clinical terms and procedures into place and they're not going to ring a bell with me. They're just not because I'm adamant. I'm done, man. It's too cold here. I got a lumpy mattress. They don't take us anywhere. The food sucks. They come with a million excuses. The valid reason is what you need to look for. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people miss the boat on that. The other thing I do, particularly when it comes to AMAs, is I reveal my actual stick with treatment and how I suffered from contempt prior to investigation. How I needed to do, I wanted to do. Once I relinquished control and followed someone who knew what it felt like to be me, obviously I've been around 15 and a half years. I found some success with that. I found that I wasn't alone, that I kind of had a compadre of sorts, and now I have a whole bunch of them. But the bottom line is to effectively block an AMA, you have to have personal experience with addiction. That's just my opinion. It doesn't make it 100% accurate. But I will tell you that I've been on a lot of AMAs where the clinicians have done it and they have had zero success because they're not trained in it. It's about, for lack of a better description, punching them in the heart. And once I see the water behind the eyes, I know. And that's when I have the compassion and empathy for them, because I know they feel. And I know that if they feel, they really do have a desire to get better. So I hammer the heart. I really do. I really try to get inside, but in a non-clinical way. I do it by identifying my own experience, strength, and hope, and what happened with me.
And that's 100 times more powerful because it's emotion. Therapists don't think emotionally. They think emotionless. They think clinical, mind. Let's talk about how you feel, and then let's talk about consequences. Well, the addict's sitting there going, I don't care about consequences because I want to get high right now. I don't care what's going to happen to me 6 hours from now, 24 hours from now. The clinician goes, well, you should. The addict's mind goes, why? I'll be high. Who cares what happens when I'm high? Which makes sense.
That's beautifully said. Simplistic, very simplistic and straight to the point, because that's the reality. I don't care. I've been to prison as a result of my addiction. I didn't even stop using in prison. The bottom line is I had absolutely no care in the world about whatever consequence came my way. Why? Because my drug of choice was my companion, my perceived solution, my lover, my friend. It made it all go away. And I don't have to listen to you, because the moment I walk out that door, it's all going to go away. It's all going to go away.
Exactly. I think a lot of people miss the boat on a couple things. Getting people into treatment and then keeping people in treatment. Because we're not looking at it as a heart-centered model anymore. We're looking at it as a clinical model. And it's very cold and calculated. You need to go to treatment or this is going to happen. You need to go to treatment or that is going to happen. And then they get in there and they're not comfortable. And I always say growth happens when you're uncomfortable. If you're comfortable in treatment, there's something wrong. You should be uncomfortable. That's how I know you're moving forward.
Then why are there all these places with massage and acupuncture and yoga, and they can have their phones and they have wireless? Why does that exist? Because the bottom line...
You're setting me up for the most unpolitical answer you are ever going to hear.
Good.
I have more of their private clients who come to me and say, that was the biggest joke I've ever had. I got a massage, I got my nails done, I got my hair done, I had sex in the bathroom. One couple that came to me was in treatment together, and they bought them a hotel room. And they had sex and relapsed. And they met each other in rehab. And I said to them, why? And they said, well, they took our money and they kept us in treatment. That's the problem. We are a monetized model of keeping the clients happy. And that's a problem. If you're happy, you're not uncomfortable. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not doing any work. If you're not doing any work, you're wasting your 30 days to get out and get high. And we've gotten away from treatment, and now it's more like a concierge, make the client happy at all costs model, which is not working. It's failing.
Well, of course it is, because they're missing the main ingredient, and that is the truth. And people are so afraid of the truth. People are afraid to tell them the truth. Here's my unpolitical opinion is that they get a hold of somebody who has a great insurance policy. They think that that's good because they can offer them the best, the finery, the catering, the coddling, the cuddling. Listen, we all want to be loved. We all want to be treated nice. I get that. But the bottom line is the truth of our own lives as active addicts, alcoholics, whatever your case may be, or whatever flavor of your addiction, we need the truth. Because without that, we cannot possibly see what's really happening to it. We're in such denial. You know, again, consequences, family leaving us, all the rest of it, our drug speaks to us. It's okay. You got me. I'll take it all away for you. Don't worry about it. And then the next morning we wake up in that same misery, that same grief, that remorse, the shame, all of the emotional attachments of active addiction. So what do? We can't handle that, not on our own. We've got to seek our solace again, which is our drug of choice. So until we hear the truth, especially about someone who has overcome that, the hope is lost. We can't believe. We don't have the shining examples in treatment. There's not enough 12-step recovery education. There isn't enough education, period, when it comes to treatment. It's clinical, it's treatment. Where's the education? What am I supposed to do with this information? How do I process it when you're talking in PhD language and I don't get it? You're telling me I need to do this, but you don't tell me why. So without that missing component, I've always believed that the truth is the truth. There's nothing else other than the truth. And that's what we're talking about here is that the only way to really help people is the truth. And it comes hard and fast, and people don't like it. They're uncomfortable with it. Of course we are. If we're uncomfortable with it, that's the opportunity to say, okay, how? Show me. Because I really want to do what you have.
That's exactly correct. And we talked earlier about the family piece, wrapping them into it, so when the addict goes home, they have those boundaries and they have the extra support that's just lacking. So our model is so broken, all the way around, and it's going to take us a lot to get it into where it needs to be. So I think services such as yours with the radio show are imperative. You're able to get the message out to so many people every single day, and those people can talk to other people.
So now I'm going to turn the tables on you. I'm going to ask you a question.
Of course.
How can you possibly remove an individual who's afflicted with addiction, send them off to treatment, and do nothing with the family, and that individual ends up coming back into the same scenario, the same emotions, the same distrust, and place them right back in the midst of it and expect that they're going to be successful in staying clean and sober?
This is where my PR person is going to lynch me. I am so against that model, and I have been against that model. I've been in this industry 21 years. I started off in a prison at SEI Rockview doing this work, and I have seen nothing but a revolving door, not just prison, but treatment centers, if it's just the addict that's treated. No one wants to treat the family, and I don't understand why, because 90% of the time, they're sicker than the client. They are doing some of the most bizarre things, and not just individually. You have a unit of 4 or 5 people all doing different things at the same time, moving against each other, and you remove the addict. They expect the addict to get sober in 30 days after they've been using for 5 or 10 years. And then you drop them back in the toxic environment and say, swim. And the addict goes, oh, God, everybody's crazier than me. I got to numb out. I can't handle this. And that's just what happens. So hopefully, we offer a recovery coaching family recovery coaching taught by Katie Donovan Brennan course for the family, how to teach the family. It's for, students who want to learn how to coach the family unit, because there is no resource for them to go say, I need help. They go to a therapist, the therapist says, well, I don't know what to tell you. It's family therapy, but it's not addiction. So you have family therapists who have no concept of addiction, and then you have addiction professionals that don't know what to do with the family. So we have this big hole. So we created the family course to say, let's train people to work with the family and say, this is what's going to happen. This is what you need to do. I had one lady, we put her kid in treatment. He comes out of treatment. He calls me. The day he gets out, she takes him to Outback Steakhouse. He calls me from the bathroom, and he says to me, I don't know what to do. And I said, what's wrong? He said, my mom just ordered 2 mixed drinks to celebrate me completing rehab. And I said, go back to the table and hand that phone to your mother. And he did. And I lit her up every which way to tomorrow. And I said, I can't believe you would do that. And she says, well, why not? He can just have one. And I said, no, he can't. He's an alcoholic. There is no one. It's going to be one, and then you're not going to see him for a week. So she didn't even grasp the concept of let's celebrate your sobriety with alcohol. And I put my palm to my forehead and said, wow, we've got to educate these people.
Yeah, but there's the other side of that on top of it, and I've had this situation happen where the child or loved one is a drug user, right? Alcohol's not their problem. So the kid's been doing opiates and heroin and all the rest of it, and they get out of treatment, and the family decides to throw a welcome home party because, after all, a beer is no big deal because he's a drug addict.
Yep.
And they don't understand that any substance that affects us from the neck up sets off an incredible craving for what we usually do. And I've dealt with mothers and dads. I had a guy not too long ago. He calls me up. He says, I don't know what happened. You know, he completed his 30 days. He was going to meetings here, and he was going to the Fellowship for Drug Addiction. And we were sitting around and we were working in the yard. So I got a cold beer and I gave him one and he drank it. And the next thing I know, he stole money out of my wallet and he's using drugs again. And I said, why did you offer him a beer? He goes, well, I thought it was just a beer. Yeah, it was just a beer that set into motion in that boy's young head, who hadn't been educated long enough about the mental defense, which we don't possess. We do not have a mental defense against that first drink or drug. So you set in motion what you thought was harmless and okay into his active addiction again. And the bottom line is that you can't have anything. You just can't. So, you know, the educational aspect again, and I'll repeat it as many times as possible. It is so vital that the family grabs hold of the educational aspects of what addiction really is. Not just the addiction, but also the impact on them. More often than not, they don't even recognize the traumas they've been through, the instabilities, the volatile emotional reactions with the individual. They just don't think about it. They think, oh, once they go to treatment, everything's going to be fine. No, you have to heal too. You've been put through a chaotic lifestyle dealing with people like us who are active addicts and alcoholics. You need to heal. You need to educate yourself about that entire process, because we want you to be able to welcome your loved one home in a very effective, guarded, loving situation where you protect your feelings, your life, and the boundaries that you're able to set because you've received some education as a result.
Exactly. And that's key. Education is key for the families. They just don't have it. And we lack the resources right now. Every treatment center should have a family coaching program, period. And they don't. They have family day where you bring McDonald's, and that's about it. Maybe they have a family session, but they're not teaching them what skills and boundaries to have when the client leaves treatment. And that's imperative.
Well, there are so many things that treatment is missing the boat on. I would love to see vocational programs instituted in treatment centers where people can learn how to find a career. Get your GED, high school diploma if you don't have one. The educational aspect of life skills, how to cook an egg, for example, instead of, as soon as you mentioned McDonald's, I'm going, I want to start a cooking class in treatment centers. Take one of the apartments, get them all in there, and teach them how to make food, how to be responsible. Some of them don't even know how to make their bed because their bed's been made for them their entire life. So how can you expect this entitled individual to learn any life skills if everything is handed to them? And that's another aspect of the family, is they have to learn how to say no and allow their child to be independent. Otherwise, I know so many people, my God, it's crazy. Guys that don't even know where to put oil in their car. It's really gotten to the point where I think the family unit has become so entitled that these kids are lost and they think they're going to be saved every single time. And then they bounce from treatment center to treatment center because of what? because they AMA, because the parents go along with whatever they say. I don't know about you, but I prep for the call from treatment. I prep the family for it. Your kid's going to call you. And I'll tell you, it'll either be in the first week and no later than the second week. And he will complain and he'll moan and groan and how badly he's being treated and all the rest of it. You do not need to listen to it. We're done. You're there. You need to stay. And hang up the phone. That's cold and callous to some parents, but I got news for you. That's the truth. If you do that, you will still be able to get on with your life. And then it's their responsibility. They have to learn to be responsible for themselves. Is it a good decision? And then that's where I come in. I go down to the facility. I sit down with them in a room. I like a good cop, bad cop scenario, because I like being the bad cop. Bottom line is you got to tell them the truth. And I'll bring it back to the very beginning. Give me a valid reason. And everything you say to me has to be a reason, because I know all the excuses. I sold them to everybody for 40 years. All right. I could sell you your underwear while you were wearing it and you look forward to buying it.
And that's the truth.
Yes, absolutely. So the difference today is I don't have to sell anything. I live it. And, you know, the beauty of what you do is that's your life. That's your commitment. That's your professionalism that shines through to people. You're successful because you believe in what you do. You know the truth. You know what it is. And some people don't like it. They just don't.
That's true. We are just about out of time, so why don't you tell all of our listeners, let's plug your radio show and your Facebook and where they can find you.
I always say just put Indian Bob in Google. I certainly own the first page of Google, but I am on Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 97.5 FM, 96.1 FM, 1340 AM here in the Palm Beaches, worldwide through our Facebook feed, which is facebook.com/recoveryradio.fm. You can give us a call. I have a helpline. It is 844-INDN-BOB or 844-Indian-Bob. Bottom line is search me out. Listen to the show. You will find an education beyond belief. Same as with Dr. Cali. You can also go to my website, which is recoveryradiораw.com. I have well over 800 shows archived on that website, dealing with everything from trauma, addiction, sex, you name it. I've got a category for it, and I've done a radio show on it. So I hope and encourage all of you, seek the resources necessary to change your life. Seek the truth, because that's the most important tool you will ever have in your life to make you get better. The truth.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. Indian Bob in the Google search bar, and he will answer any questions that you have. I want to thank you for coming on and being our guest today.
It was my pleasure.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. Thanks again for listening. I really hope you enjoyed the show today. Head on over to iTunes and Apple Podcasts and leave a comment or review of what you think. Or contact us at 1-800-706-0318. If you want to be on our show, feel free to email or call. And if you have a topic, feel free to email or call as well.
Thanks for listening to Unpause Your Life. For show notes and more, head on over to unpauseyourlife.com.
Big shout out to recoveryinnovators.com for help producing this show. Thank you, guys.
I took a walk down the long road where they said that I shouldn't go. On my way found a reason to wake up another day. But they needed to show you all the things that you won't do. Find faith or religion, but nothing to show for it. walked down the dark road where they said that I shouldn't go. I knew the dangers of flying. Now I'm so far from silent cries.